Florida. In many ways, North America's final frontier. When left to its own devices, it's practically uninhabitable, but has been painstakingly carved up into an end-of-life, Disney World-esque, cruise ship-like entertainment experience for a mostly homogeneous demographic of people. When planning your next trip to Florida, you can expect to see beautiful white sandy beaches sprinkled with cigarette butts and empty red Solo cups. Insane "Florida man arrested for" type news headlines. Unapologetic class struggle between the uber-wealthy and everyone else who is just there to serve the rich. And baby-snatching alligators in every small body of water. Today's lesson will focus on a specific part of Florida, its history, and a cocktail crafted in its honor. Today, we'll be looking at the history of Fort Myers, Florida, and the origins of the Vesper Drive. As the name suggests, Fort Myers entered the scene as a U.S. military fort in 1850. But who was the U.S. military fighting in Florida in 1850? Well, of course, this was during the Third Seminole War and part of the U.S.-sanctioned ethnic cleansing, removal, and genocide of the tribes native to the southeastern United States. It was described as one of the finest and largest forts of the Seminole Wars. It was abandoned in 1858 after Florida militias burned all tribal cities and crops in the region, and the few remaining Seminoles in the area agreed to be removed from their ancestral homelands via the Trail of Tears and sent west to newly designated Indian Territory. The fort was occupied again by Union forces during the Civil War and acted as a hub for escaped slaves, Union sympathizers, and the apprehension of cattle that were otherwise destined to be sold into the Confederate Army supply chain. Fort Myers was the site of the southernmost battle of the Civil War. Local cattle ranchers formed a militia designated the Cow Cavalry and attacked the fort with intentions of dislodging the Union presence in the area. The attack was repelled, but the fort was abandoned soon after, as the Confederate states surrendered to the Union only 3 months later. In 1866, a trading post was established near the abandoned fort, and slowly, a small community began to form. In 1885, the city of Fort Myers was incorporated. The same year saw a visit from famed inventor Thomas Edison. He purchased 13 acres of land and constructed Seminole Lodge, his winter estate, fitted with an on-site laboratory so he could continue his work at his Florida home. Automotive magnate Henry Ford would soon purchase the neighboring home, and the trend of northern elites snowbirding in Florida had begun. Ambrose McGregor, a close associate of John D. Rockefeller, would purchase the home next to the other two industrialists and begin buying up major tracts of land in the area for citrus cultivation, with grapefruit being a preferred fruit in the orchards. Over the next few decades, these wealthy snowbirds would invest heavily in the town's development. Jumping ahead to the mid-1950s, areas that were previously grapefruit orchards were purchased and developed into a residential neighborhood, being dubbed the Seminole Estates. Jumping ahead to the early 1990s, one of these mid-century homes would be purchased, become the homestead of a fledgling new family, and grow into the venue for a number of unforgettable cocktail parties over the course of the next 3 decades. In fact, so much merrymaking would take place that it was deemed necessary for a house cocktail to be developed. Thus, a cocktail was born, paying homage to the location's historical role as a citrus grove and aptly named for the street on which the home was situated, the Vesper Drive. Here to recreate this cocktail on screen, heir to the family recipe, our very own Florida man, me. Thank you, everyone. Today, we're going to be making a cocktail that's near and dear to my heart. One developed and perfected by my very own parents and their drinking buddies, the Vesper Drive. To start, we're going to want to cut a grapefruit and juice it. And what, there's no knife on this set? Oh, Mr. Big Shot producer forgot to bring a knife to this set. It's okay, it's okay. I brought my gun. No, don't worry, it's fine. Down in Florida, I use this to keep the textbooks out of the classroom. You see, if you shoot them full of enough holes, then them kids ain't gonna be able to read them, and they're not gonna get indoctrinated. But in a pinch, we can do something like this. And looky there. Well, now that we've got it cut, let's juice that Florida fruit. And like the intro alluded to, this cocktail has been in development for 3 decades or so. After my parents passed the mantle on to me, I became the party admiral, and though I've since retired, I still make the drink on occasion, just because it's so good. Alright, the Florida juice has been extracted. Now, in this very rocks glass, we want to take a cube of ice, and we'll measure out 2 ounces of vodka. In this case, I am using Tito's. Not a Florida product, but one that I drank plenty while I lived in Florida. Got our 2 ounces of vodka. Through a strainer, we'll add an unmeasured amount of grapefruit juice. It's going to be about that much. Practically the juice of 1 grapefruit is a way you could measure that. And we'll top off the glass with a little bit of the club soda there. Finally, we'll take a wedge of lime and we'll squeeze it into our drink. And that is how you do the Vesper Drive. So let's give it a taste. A little stir from the finger never hurt. That's perfect. You know, you'd think, because it's just vodka and citrus juice, that this would be overly tart. There's no added sugar. There's no simple syrup in here. I've got sugar as a prop, but didn't use any. You always can if you want your drinks more sweet, but I don't think it needs it. There's no added sugar, just the juice of the grapefruit and the lime, and the vodka, of course. Very simple, full of flavor, full of fun, and from family. A Dahlen recipe. It's the Vesper Drive. A big shout out and cheers to my patrons on Patreon. You may have noticed that my set for today's video is much brighter than it has been in the past. This is all thanks to you. Through your donations, I am able to purchase better gear and equipment and constantly be making that production value a little better than it was last time. So thank you again. Now, if you're not yet a patron, maybe you'd consider becoming one. It's as simple as clicking the link below the video and choosing whatever amount you'd like to donate. So cheers in advance.